Welcome to episode 211 of School Librarians United. I'm your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian in my 16th year, I knew I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself, my interview guests, and listeners who reach out to the podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. I'd like to extend a very special welcome this week to listeners Judith in Australia, Lisa in California, Erica in Louisiana, Sherry and Laura in Michigan, April in New Jersey, Emily and Christy in North Carolina. Jen in Missouri provided me with some very important listener feedback because she's been searching for past episodes, and it can be kind of frustrating because I don't have content tags which would help a search either by topic or grade level. It was one of this past summer's goals to create a robust website with that type of searchability. For now, I've created the playlists using a Google Sheet because it accomplishes part of what I hope to achieve eventually in a website. You can always find the link to this playlist in our show notes. And when I asked why I linked to the website and not Apple Podcasts, I did explain that there are over 100 different podcatchers currently out there broadcasting episodes each week. So I decided to use the dedicated website as opposed to selecting one of the podcatchers to use when there are so many out there. I welcome you and all listeners to reach out with your feedback and episode suggestions. You can reach me either on Facebook. On Twitter, my handle is @LMS_United, or the email address schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, I'll be sure to send you a podcast sticker. And now for a word from our official sponsor, Capstone. Capstone is an innovative publisher and education technology provider of children's content for school libraries, classrooms, and at-home learning. Home of the award-winning Pebble Go research database, Capstone has a passion for creating inspired learning and intellectual curiosity in children, and I am so excited to be working with them. And now in a segment I like to call Why I Love Capstone. Friends, this segment today is dedicated to the graphic novel adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe's books. In this case, we have The Fall of the House of Usher, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, as well as The Pit and the Pendulum, and Telltale Heart. So, friends, I love this idea of sort of enticing our readers with the graphic novel format as a sort of gateway to introducing our students to the authoritative text, to the novels and to the plays and to the, I have these, the equivalent of these, say, in Shakespeare, and I also have the Edgar Allan Poe graphic novel adaptations. I was thinking especially because we support English language learners, and this would be a wonderful sort of side-by-side or way to introduce a text to somebody who is still grasping the English language, but also to be able to accompany the classroom reading of these books, which I think is really helpful and empowering. It is worth mentioning the reading levels are approximately a second to third grade reading level, but the interest level would obviously be at a much higher level, grades 5th through 9th. But in each case, these are books which I think that you would find a ready audience, because our students are always looking for the graphic. They're always looking for scary. And I know that I had students in my elementary school looking for, where are the scary books, Mrs. Herman? And the fun thing is that these are a wonderful way to get our kids excited about reading something longer and say, listen, there's a book that goes along with this. And I think that it would really be a fun way to get students excited about reading the classics. I am so grateful to Capstone for their continued commitment to support the podcast in Season 5. They are offering listeners of School Librarians United a very special discount. Visit shop.capstonepub.com and use the code UNITED to get $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and Capstone interactive ebooks. That's code UNITED for $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and ebooks on shop.capstonepub.com. And friends, today's episode deserves a little bit of an explanation, and that is because, well, first of all, like many episodes, it is a listener request. But in this case, it's much like episode 202, Renovations, Experts Chime in that I felt that to have one guest speak on the topic today that is so incredibly varied, it seems sort of limiting to have one person talk about circulation software when there are a multitude of different programs out there and we all have ways that we incorporate it into our programming. But I really like this format of an asynchronous panel of experts who all share their experiences. I'm also incredibly fortunate to have guests who share their time and their talents, and grateful when they graciously share this space with one another. And now for today's episode, Circulation Software, Experts Chime in, and my conversation with Harry Coffill, Madison Dearnaley, Blake Hopper, Wenndy Pray, Steve Tatro, and Carolyn Vibert. Friends, I am so excited. We are in for a treat today. Australia is chiming in about their circulation software. Madison Dearnaley, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome being back. I love it.
Friends, this is why you check Twitter, because I was in between things checking Twitter, and there was Madison going, "Hey, I'm here. Can we record?" And it's like, oh, I was so excited. Now, Madison, the last time you and I spoke, it was July of 2022, and we had a really fun conversation with Dr. Kay Ordoney, and it was creating culture change. That was such a fun conversation.
It was awesome. And then we got to go and present about that topic a little bit later. So yeah, it's been a really powerful kind of topic, and still working on it, still working on changing our reading culture. And I'm always still looking into that topic. But yeah, it was so awesome to connect all three of us at that point.
I love when the podcast is where we workshop our ideas. I think when you say things out loud, they become real. You know, Madison, I am so excited. First of all, Happy New Year.
And to you.
Madison, this is exciting. You're starting your school year.
Yes, for us in Australia, we get to have our nice summer holiday break, so the extended break over that Christmas time, and then we get to start the new year in January. For different parts of Australia, it starts at different times, but up here in Queensland, we're starting back now. It's good to be back on site and jumping in and getting ready to welcome those new students and staff.
Wow. You know, would you tell us a little bit about the ages of the students you support and the type of schedule that you have?
So I am the head of library services at St Paul's School. We are an independent school in Queensland. We have about 1,400 students, and they go from pre-prep students to year 12. So little 4-year-olds all the way through to our 18-year-olds. We have an international school as well, so we have some of those older students coming in from countries all around the world. It's a really exciting opportunity. We have 2 libraries in the school. We have a junior library and a secondary library. Our secondary library is about to move into a new space, so at the moment we're in the process of packing up and getting ready, which is very exciting. I get to work predominantly as the teacher librarian in the secondary school, and we have a teacher librarian in the junior school. So as well as overseeing the 2 libraries, I get to do information literacy classes, library classes. I have a regular timetable teaching load, all of those fun things.
So I'm really curious because I'm very familiar with some of the big circulation software programs which are used in the United States. Can you tell us what program you use and give us some context? Is it something that is broadly used, or is it sort of a smaller program? Can you tell us what program do you use, and is it broadly used in Australia?
So we use Concord Infinity is our library management system. It is one of sort of the big top ones that is used in Australia, and I'm pretty sure it's used around the world, and they are promoting that internationally. So hopefully people listening around the world can use it as well. It's a really fantastic system. I don't consider myself an expert in it at all, because when I joined this school, which was 2 years ago, this is my 3rd year, it was new to me. Every other school library that I had been in, I had used SoftLink Oliver, which I believe is one of the ones used in the US as well. They have Overdrive, so often that is a known one. So it was really strange to me going in for the first time after using another system in all my other libraries, trying a new one and getting my head around that. And sometimes I still speak in the language of the old one and have to translate it into this new one. But I'm really enjoying getting to know this system and testing it out. I'm really loving it and loving the flexibility and that connection. It's an Australian-based company, so when you reach out to support, you get the Australian people that actually are based in Brisbane as well, and you can troubleshoot with them, which is great, because I tend to need a lot of help going, I've messed this up again, please help.
Well, and I think it's nice because in your school you have 2 teacher librarians, so presumably you can bounce ideas off of each other. Do you feel that this circulation software is one that really addresses and supports your students and across age groups?
Yes, absolutely. Because it's so flexible, it gives us that ability to customize it for our junior students and our senior students, sometimes in a way that it's more on us as the library staff. And I have a wonderful library team as well as my teacher librarian. I've got library technicians in both the secondary and the junior school and library assistants. So all of us are able to get in there and use it for different purposes. Some library systems, like Oliver, I guess that's my go-to refer back to, seem to have systems that are set up for your junior students right out of the box. Whereas with Infinity, it's really flexible, which is what I love, but it does mean that we have to then go in and make those changes. So I have an opening page for our juniors set up and our seniors, so that when they go in, they see something that's completely different. But that's on us to set that up.
Wow. And your catalog is publicly accessible, which means the community can see what you have on your shelves. Presumably? No. Okay, yeah.
No, it's not. Ours is protected by the school's sign-in system. So because we are a single sign-on school, then it's very easy for students to get into it. But no, I can make different pages accessible. So if I wanted to give you access, I can do that. But in terms of if you just wanted to jump on and see what books I have, no, you can't do that. But that's just because we've set it up that way. That's how it's been.
Well, and forgive me, but you haven't faced the assault of the book bannings that have crisscross the United States. I'm sure on some level there are some librarians who'd really rather not have a publicly accessible catalog. I know that it's curious because most of ours are accessible to the public and they don't realize all they have to do is go on the website and they can find it. But I'm sure that works, that's very intentional with your district.
I'm not sure if it's just because sometimes single sign-on setups are great because it helps students access. As soon as they've logged in, they can see what they've got on loan. But single sign-on is great until you're trying to get around it. So I think sometimes that's just a consequence of that rather than something that's been deliberate. But I haven't gone to try and change that. I think, sometimes there are benefits. And the great thing with this software is that there are a lot of features that enable me to get around it when I need it. So if I'm using it for my OPACs or for people that need to just use a roaming iPad, things like that, I can create accounts. They can sign on without having to go through that sign-in system. I can give, if I wanted to give yourself access, I'd give you just the link and a quick sign-in, or I can create widgets and embed them into my web pages and blogs. So I can say, here's a curated list rather than going and looking through all the different books. Yeah.
Oh, that's an excellent feature. Now, what about when you're buying books? Has this software taken into consideration when you need to upload those records into your catalog?
Again, I have an incredible team, so I am very, very, very lucky to have two incredible library technicians, and their role is to do the cataloguing. So when books are purchased, they go to them, and they're the ones that are adding it to our system. It's not connected to our purchasing suppliers, which from conversations that I've heard on this podcast, it seems that is some of the software where you're buying it from is the same as who's your software. That's not the case in any way in Australia with any of our major suppliers, as far as I'm aware, but certainly not with this one. When we're purchasing books, we then add them to our system. We have different companies here in Australia that then help us with that, so that when you just scan the book, all the resources are there loaded, and you can cataloguing is a fairly straightforward process. I say that as the person who doesn't have to do it. But it's, that's how we add books.
Do you feel that your circulation software does a good job of supporting your students when they're trying to find materials?
Yes, I believe so. I think, again, it comes back to that flexibility and that customization, and we can change that. So when I have those OPACs open in the library, or I'm directing my students to that, I can customize it to what they see. So something that shows a list of resources or moving to a movie streaming software kind of outline where you've just got the covers of the books, or a mix of that it's quite easy for them to just hover over the title and see which collection and location it's at. So yes, lots of areas for them to search. So it's at the top all the time, regardless of what page they're on, as well as being able to add that on different pages. So it's, it does.
What do you think is like the best feature? Like, if somebody had to threaten to take this program away, you're like, no, you can't, because I absolutely love this about this particular software.
That's an easy question to answer because it's libpaths. So part of the Concord Infinity platform is a program called libpaths, and that is, I guess, if you know libguides, it's like that. It's a research guide platform that feeds directly into our catalogue and works seamlessly with that, but you can also buy it separately. I do know that because I know I've had people reach out to me and go, can I have this separately? And the company have sold it separately, like LibGuides is separate. And it means that I can do everything from create multiple homepages for landing. So as well as having that customized homepage to begin with, adding this on means that I can have one for my reading groups. I can have one for my junior school and my secondary school. I can create as many as I want. I can also create research guides. I think we have 180 sitting there. I know, it's a lot. We are one of the top users, apparently, in terms of numbers of guides that we've created. So I have English teachers come to me and say, we are doing Othello. Can you please create a libpath for me? And so I create, I add the movie, I create the links to the books and the help guides. I can add links to the sort of guides that you'd need help with. I can do it on any topic I want. The reason I just tweeted you was because I was in the middle of creating one for our new students, and I thought, oh yeah, Amy was asking for people who wanted to talk about the software. Let me talk about it. Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. Madison, you're fantastic. I'm so grateful that you could just take time out of your busy day to speak with us. I really, truly appreciate this. Friends, if you haven't heard Madison's episode 185, it was absolutely a tour de force. And the next time you talk to Dr. Kay Ardoni, please give her my best. And I wish you a fantastic start to your school year. Oh, do tell us where we can follow you, because friends, Madison and I are on Twitter all the time.
We are. We're still there.
We are.
Yes. Oh, I'm loving Twitter still. I know. Well, the library community anyway. You will find me on Twitter at Madison's Library. Often you'll find me at Madison's_library on Instagram. My website is madisonslibrary.com. And that'll probably do you. That's enough.
Absolutely. No, you're wonderful. I love reading your blog posts. It's how you and I got in touch. So, Madison, have a fantastic new school year.
Thank you, and good luck with the continuation of your semester.
the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Amy. How are you?
I am well, thank you. So, friends, if you recognize Wendy's voice, it is because she has been on this podcast already twice. The first time for an episode called Student Ambassadors, episode 121, and that was recorded in April of 2021. And then in episode 145, round one, Can I Just Vent, which was recorded in October of 2021. So Wenndy Pray, welcome back. I'm so glad to see you.
I am very happy to see you, and I'm very happy to be back on the podcast.
So, Wenndy, would you just remind listeners where in the country you are and give us an idea of what you're doing now, because it's a little different than when we last spoke.
Yes. So I am from deep South Texas. I'm a certified librarian in deep South Texas, like 8 miles from the border. And I am currently working in a high school, in a local high school, and I'm working with young adults considered at risk, or how I like to call them, opportunity youth. And it's a very unique situation because I'm not the librarian at this high school. I am kind of like the lead of this school within a school dynamic. And so I don't have a library, but I'm in charge of creating a library somewhere between a classroom library and a full-blown school library. And I'll be using disciplinary literacy and content area literacy to create a collection for my kiddos.
Wonderful. Now, you told me that when we were talking off tape, you wanted to talk about something other than Follett. This was actually a system that you've used for quite some time. So let us hear about this Circ software that you wanted to discuss.
So I want to tell everyone in the world that I love Book Systems Atrium. Book Systems Atrium is a library management system out of Alabama here in the States. And I used a Book Systems Atrium for 8 years, for 3 years as a user, and then for 5 years on the administrative end. And I cannot tell you the amazing things that I have to say about Book Systems Atrium, because I actually also worked with Follett. And so in my mind, I can compare the two, but I want to sing praises for Atrium because one of my favorite things about it is the user friendliness of it. It's very simple to use, very simplistic dashboard for both users and for admin. I know as an admin, it was very easy for me to pull reports, inventory reports, add bibliographic records, add subheadings, like if I want to genreify, or if I wanted to add read initiative information or reading initiatives that I was doing, it was very easy for me to do that. As I learned about curating and weeding and doing all of these awesome things to my collection, it also became very easy to merge bibliographic records. So I didn't have to go on like a wild goose chase to find some hidden report somewhere. It was all there at my fingertips, and it was something that I could do very easily without being granted head district administrative access or some weird approval that I could not get. It was very easy for me to do. Another one of my favorite things about this software is that it integrated so easily with our student management system. So every night it would sync my student records, my patron records. And I didn't have to create a separate report and then import that or import something one at a time, a patron at a time. Or like, for example, if I wanted to send notices out to a specific English teacher, for example, the system would do it for me. So I didn't have to go record by record. Can you hear my trauma? I didn't have to go record by record and create a teacher and then manually add every single kid. It was done seamlessly, and I could customize these records. So if I didn't want, certain confidential information to be, merged with the Atrium database, it wasn't. It's just awesome. I also like that on the landing page, you could program the different dates of library programming. So I could go into the admin background and say, okay, from February 1st to February 28th, it's Black History Month. So I want you to put a Black History banner in the user interface so they could see it. And I would set it through the whole year. This is something I would do my first week of school when I would go back to the campus, set all of my programming dates in my calendar and set it and forget it. and it would change by itself and I didn't have to worry about it. So it was just very user-friendly. It is a very user-friendly system.
Did you find that did you find that the students were able to navigate it and use it?
Yes. And I think that's another huge perk of how simple it is to navigate. Very easy. There's a search bar. I think this is very common for most LMSs. The kiddos go in there and search. They can place books on hold. A perk of systems, Atrium, is that the kiddos could see on the left side of the screen if that book was available in another library. So it made it easy for me it facilitated interlibrary loans in that way. Because they could say, hey, miss, you don't have this book, or it's checked out for us, but the high school has it. May I borrow it? And so, that makes your job easier. So they really liked that. Another thing that I love about Atrium is the customer service. I am a huge customer service evangelist, Amy. I cannot tell you. That is my background. Before I became an educator, before I became a librarian, I was in the hospitality industry. It is huge. Atrium has ready on the spot. You're answering the phone right then. You're helping me right then and there. It's got that small mom and pop feel to it, to where they're not so huge that you get lost in the thousands and thousands of customers that I have. And they have a versatile product. So it's like, oh, you bought a book from this vendor or this in this format. You can integrate that too. I've worked with systems where it's like, no, we don't do that vendor, or we can't do that format, or 10 planets have to align for this to work. No, I want an answer right now. Like, my time is precious. I don't have another librarian to help me. And another huge perk of that customer service is if you want to run a report, and if you're like me, like an overachiever, hold on, let me write every single step down so that I don't need to call you to do this report again. And they're like, no, your time is precious. I can just run that report for you right now and save it to your system so that you don't have to. I'm not kidding. I know it sounds like it's too good to be true. It is amazing. It is an extra fee a year, but so worth it. So worth it. I've been in situations where I can't do a report, or I can't mass delete fines, for example. If I want to mass delete fines, I wrote this, I won't say the company's name. I wrote their rep, and I needed the help right then and there. They replied 3 months later asking me if I needed help. Like, no. Atrium has awesome customer service because I don't have the time to hunt you down. I don't have the time for all these things. And so they're really, really amazing. I love them for that a lot. Those are my non-negotiables. Is it easy for me to do my job? On the back end, do I need to jump through all these hoops? And are you going to be there for me when I need you? Because I'm paying you to be there for me. Are you going to be there? So those two are my non-negotiables. Now, is it a perfect system? It's not a perfect system. One thing that Atrium, I would love if they had, is just improve on your graphics. It's not as pretty and fancy as the other ones are. It's not MS-DOS either. Don't get me wrong. It's not that. But they could use a little bit more perks as far as just making it a little more aesthetic. Especially because if you're in a middle school or with younger kids who are used to that, they're used to the updated graphics. They're used to the ability to, a lot of librarians like to embed using HTML code. You can do that to a certain degree in Atrium, but it could definitely use the perks in that. I think if I had to think of anything, needs improvement about Atrium, it would be that.
It sounds more like a cosmetic fix. It really is cosmetic because functionally it has all it checks off all the boxes.
Correct. It is purely aesthetic. I'm glad you said that. Everything else, like the bones, like what I need to do my job well and to offer service, quickly and effectively, it does for me. And that's why I love Atrium. I love them to the moon and back. Bless their hearts. I do.
Now, can I ask you, were you the only school that used it, or was this used at the district level?
This was used at the district level. And so all schools had Atrium. So this is why my kiddos could see what school had a book they needed, because they were all on the same LMS. Oh, yes.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, you started to say that you're going to be putting together something of like a capsule collection, something of a small library that you are going to be circulating with your students. You bring years and years of library experience to this role. I imagine you've got titles that you're excited to bring in and generate that excitement to read.
Yes. So the particular group of students I'm working with is young adults, and they are at all reading levels. So one of the things that I really want is to bring in the YA collection, which is something that I have very little experience with because I've been in middle school for so long. So it's been very limited, my young adult experience. So I'm very excited about that. And also kind of looking at how can I get low level but high interest books in there to not just help you with where you are as a reader, but to help you understand these abstract ideas about how we connect with the world through books. I know a lot of my students are also young parents. And so I will have, picture books for them. This is how you would read to your baby. This is how we read books to, you are now going to be a parent. And so it's very exciting for me because it's almost, as I'm telling you right now, like a public library in a school form. It's just a very unique creature, and I'm super excited to build it from scratch for sure.
Well, and friends, I will say on this episode is a librarian who worked with the continuing education program and working with students in alternative ed and building that collection with their public libraries assistants and using the teen librarian to help them build that collection. And they also included titles for the children of their students,
right,
and trying to build that love of literacy with these young parents. And in this case, friends, it's episode 109, collaborating with public librarians. And they were working on building out that extended opportunity, this, alternative ed opportunity. So, Wenndy, I am so excited for you because it sounds like it's a completely new challenge.
Yeah.
And you're up for the task. I wish you a happy new year.
Yes.
And thank you so much. Good luck with working on your doctorate.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Amy. Happy New Year to you. And I am so excited to be on here. Hello to everyone, and everyone have a great school year.
So excited. Harry Coffill, welcome back to the podcast.
Always fun, Amy. Thank you.
Friends, this is the fourth time round for Harry. We're past a hat trick. We did episode 48 in its infancy when this baby podcast, November 2019, future of our biography section. We did episode 109 in January of 2021, collaborating with public librarians, and episode 160, round 2, Can I Just Vent, last February 2022. Harry, you're a frequent flyer on this podcast.
Ubiquitous is the word, yes.
Well, and I'm so glad you offered to come because your experience with circulation software is really unique because of the situation you came into. Can you tell us how you got the ball rolling when it came to the right circulation software for you?
So I took over a district where they were using Follett, which is fine software. But the version we were using was about a decade old. And we had to keep our data on site. So we had our own server for our Follett data at the time. So our IT team didn't really care for it. I convinced the school to go through the upgrades that nobody ever had thought of to make sure we had the most current version of Follett. I explained to them the reasoning for it. And we went through all the upgrades my first year, which cost us considerably more money. And then I was very unhappy with the support I was getting from Follett. After having gone through their hoops and paid and advocated for their product, I picked up the phone one day and was told that there was going to be an X dollars per hour service fee for the phone call. And I said, I have a hard time swallowing that when I just paid this many $1,000s to upgrade your software. And so I immediately, I said, I have a 1-year contract and that's going to be it. So I went out shopping and I looked at several different kind of open source OPACs, and casual non-library listeners, online patron access catalog, OPAC. I find that people don't always know what that means. We went through several different OPACs, and I was really, really pleased with my friends at OPALS, OPALS. It is a very pared down OPAC. It does not have all the bells and whistles that Follett has. But it turns out with my particular audience, that's really useful. My kids are using Chromebooks and cell phones, and sometimes some pretty creaky Wi-Fi systems in their house. So, flashy web was not what I was looking for. Functional and customizable was what I was looking for. And I have to say, and I provided your users with a link you can put on the podcast if you want to. I'm really tickled with just the service I get. I can send an email to Opals and I get an answer back within 10 or 15 minutes. And it's Richard or Harry, also Harry, not me. And it's like, hey, how's it going? We'll talk. Like, they've just sent me emails like, I've never paid a service fee to them. I've never paid a consultant fee to them. They've added features for me. Like, nobody's ever asked us that before. Give us 2 weeks and we'll add that feature. And then literally in the case of that one, 2 days later, I got the email like, would you test this out? This is what, we need to do.
Well, I'm dying to know, what was the feature that you were like, hey, we really could, if you don't mind sharing?
No, that's all right. So we import our patron info from PowerSchool, which we can set up as an automated basis. So it goes every night. I don't have to manually update my patron data. And I get to choose from PowerSchool what I want in the data. Opals is based out of New York State, and New York State public schools have a different standard than Michigan State. And my administrators were asking me some questions about Lexile scores and gender and language. And I said, I would really like to compile data by male or female student, language spoken in their house, and what their Lexile score is of the books that they're reading. And I don't remember which piece of information it was that they weren't comfortable collecting for New York schools. And I'm like, well, I'm not a New York school. And they said, oh, yeah. So they they didn't make the database specifically collect the information that I wanted, but they said, we're going to put like you can choose any piece of data that you want from your spreadsheet out, and made it work for me, which they didn't have to do. They really didn't. There would have been other ways for me to collect it, but they said, we understand, and for your listeners that don't know, my district is more than 85% multilingual learners. So knowing that our reading program is helping our multilingual learners is important to my budget. In fact, some of the data from that is what increased my book budget. So it's good for me to be able to go to administration and say, hey, this is working. Can I have more money for books?
Well, and this is not the first time I've heard of some sticker shock when it comes to Follett. Was the savings considerable?
Holy cow.
And how excited was your district when they found out that you were going to be making this switch?
Hey, I would say to any library, would you rather be spending money on books or your OPAC? When it comes down to it. So we've got some money-saving things. In our previous chat, we talked about working with public libraries. Because I have such a great team up with our district library, I don't buy audiobooks for my kids because they can use Hoopla and all of the public library services, and I'm just not going to spend that. And again, given our students' background, me sending kids home with a physical book is way better than any electronic book I can send them home with. I have some students who unfortunately are dealing with sketchy electricity, don't have Wi-Fi in their house. And if you got a light bulb and a book, you're good to go. You know what I mean? That's that's what I want to do. So I'm coming in at a little bit less than a third of the cost of Follett for all 3 of my buildings that I'm using the library for.
Well, and you're a district librarian, so you could sort of summarily make that decision. Is that right?
I was careful to show my paraeducators what it was. Even having 2 paraeducators working for me, I wanted buy-in. So I explained to them, and money's an easy explanation, because they had been operating Follett for 10 years, and to see something new is tough. but I'm like, we kind of have to do this. So, and I'm getting things that I know Follett can do. One of my favorite things, Amy, is we genreified our library physically, which I learned at MAME and they talked me into it. But I have genres on my digital OPAC beyond the genres on my shelves. One of the things I was really cautious about, I didn't want to put LGBTQ stickers on my books. I didn't want a child walking around with an LGBTQ sticker on their book. Now, I have a significant library of LGBTQ, and I have a digital genre tab. So if you look at my browser, you go to the top, there's genres, and I have mysteries as a genre, which I don't have as a shelf genre. I have LGBTQ as a genre. I have sports as a genre. So you may have to go to the romance section to find your sports book because it's both sports and romance. But I have all of these digital genres that allow me to cross those things over. And again, having a now fairly large Spanish language library, it's not big enough to have a science fiction section in the Spanish language library, but I can digitally have it both in Spanish and in the science fiction library so kids can find them that way. That's probably my favorite thing about OPALS is being able to do that and the customizability of that. Their Z import sources have been fantastic. I can Z import all my data. You know, most of my MARC data comes from my vendor, which is great, but those occasional donations or things that are sitting around. I will say, you know, on top of OPALS this year, I did pay for MIDINet services this year to clean up all of my MARC records. MIDINet used to be MARC Magician. You've never used that?
No,
anyway,
no, I'm fascinated. So what is this? And I've never heard of it.
So this was a one-time fee for MARC records cleanup. And they took all three of my collections and updated all the records, added all the awards and things, made sure that I didn't have any limited records, make sure that all the punctuation and capital letters and everything were clear. Basically, they scrub all of your MARC records. This used to be a product called MARC Magician, and they've digitized MARC Magician and they do it online now. So I paid for the service for this year. It's been so good that I think I will continue to subscribe to the service, but I won't need their digital cleanup anymore. So I'm going to take a little of my OPAC money and continue working with MIDINet, I think, because I've been very pleased with some of my records were a title and an author. No subject. MIDINet added all my subject headings and subject guides and centralized them all to Library of Congress. So I have confidence now that if you use my OPAC, you can find a book.
And I imagine that the OPALS Circ software is robust enough that it's going to be able to accommodate the influx of all the new materials you're going to get. Do tell listeners your wonderful news, because I know we're going to hear about it at greater length in the future. But you're one of those very lucky, amazingly lucky librarians.
Well, I was very excited that I got a $5,000 Laura Bush grant this year to buy new books, which, woohoo, $5,000. And we already spent that. That's gone. We bought nonfiction books for our elementary school library. And then in the middle of the summer, my superintendent called me and told us we got another grant. So we came in second in a grant in the state and got $150,000. That actual money is coming all for furniture. None of that is book money. We are replacing some of our furniture is going on 30, 35 years old. So I am replacing 3 libraries worth of furniture, including, and this is the big news, a brand new library, which we're building as part of a bond issue in our district. So we didn't have furniture on the bond issue, but now we're not only getting a new library structure, but we're filling it with brand new furniture, which I'm so excited for my high school students. They don't have anything like high school and middle school students. They don't have anything like this. There's going to be a full student study lounge like you would see in a college or community college. The furniture includes electric drops so they can USB their phones in and their computers. They can sit down on the couches. I've got cafe height study tables with little pop out electrical units. I'm so excited to be working on this.
Harry, I'm excited for your students and for your teachers. And I can't imagine the excitement and the energy in your space when all of these deserving students get these lovely amenities and this amazing collection. They've got you. And what amazing 2023 you've got to look forward to.
It is very, very stressful, but it's the good kind of stress.
Harry, do remind us, where can we find you on social media? I'm so grateful you could join us.
We have a Twitter and an Instagram. The Twitter feed is @LeeLibraries. And I don't remember the Instagram, but if you follow one, it's the same thing on both of them.
There you go.
Amy will provide a link if she wants to, if you want to see what our OPAC looks like. Our OPAC is public, which is a good question for you to ask your other librarians, whether or not you want everyone in the world. But you see my jacket, I'm itching for a fight.
Yes, absolutely. Friends, I'm so grateful. Harry, have a fantastic evening, and I will catch up with you very shortly.
You bet. Great.
Friends, I'm so excited. Steve Tatro, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It is always a pleasure to be here.
Friends, if you recognize this happy voice, it is because Steve has reached episode number 5 with us. Steve joined us originally, episode 61, Let's End Literacy Shaming, in February 2020. Episode 91, Using Wikipedia Wisely, and that was in September of 2020. Episode 160, Can I Just Vent? That was round 2 in February 2022. And also in February 2022 is episode 162, Fighting Censorship. And that episode was huge because of all the resources, so timely, that you shared with us from the NJSL, from the New Jersey School Librarians.
Yeah. I mean, it blows my mind that it's been 3 years that we've been doing this, because it seems like it's just been yesterday, but also like we've been friends forever. So glad I can be back.
Well, and Steve, you're now a podcaster yourself. And I think we need to just mention that because, and as well, just a quick shout out also to another creation of yours, which is the School Librarians Learning Network.
Oh, yeah.
So could you give listeners just an idea? Because you're a very busy person.
Well, I got a lot of little side projects going. So we've got the School Librarian Learning Network, which is a website that collects free resources that school librarians might be interested in. I kind of curate resources as well as any kind of free online learning opportunities that are going on out there. There's so many different things. So I just try to collect them kind of all in one place so that people can just come and stop and see what they want to see. And then, I recently became the host of the School Library Connection One Lesson at a Time podcast, where I get to talk to different school librarians about a particular lesson that they've shared, and they share the lesson plan so that listeners can actually have a copy of the lesson plan to work from and kind of incorporate it into their own practice. So that's been amazing. I've gotten to speak to some amazing people. I've got so many awesome ideas. It's really been wonderful. It really has.
Fantastic. And friends, you can be sure we're going to include all of this information in the show notes so that if you are ever interested in following up with Steve, I guarantee you we're going to put all that information together. Whenever librarians curate for other librarians, I am really grateful. So, Steve, about your circulation software, I have to imagine you have some fairly strong opinions. What's going on with you at your school?
So our school is kind of a weird one because our middle school and our high school share a building, but they are separate schools in and of themselves. The middle school lost our library space. So the middle school shares a library space with the high school now. And we were using Destiny for a long time. That had been for forever. Yeah, we were having some trouble with Destiny. I was having some trouble with Destiny. And I was fortunate enough to be co-librarianing with the high school librarian. And he was sort of like, if we have a better solution, that's great. And so I was able to basically go out and find what worked. And for me, what worked was Access-It. It came to me in an email. Here's a new system you might want to try out. And when I got the preview of it, I was just blown away because it offers so many things that really make it clear it's about students and it's about school librarians. And it's made my life so much easier. I have a hard time saying enough good things about it. Like, I literally have gone to other people's workshops about it and just been like, oh, let me tell you all the awesome things it does for me. Because it's really made such a huge difference for me and my students. The student interface it's got single sign-on, which is great. So the kids just one click, they're in the catalog. It's got different when the kids sign in. I can set which kids see which dashboards. So like my middle school kids see a different thing than my high school kids when they log in. because it's got the ability to set up different patron groups, and you can set different visibilities for different patron groups. So right away, the middle school kids and the high school kids, I can see if they're in the right thing right off the bat because I can see what they're logged into. I can also make customized dashboards that they can either drag and drop, or I can set to be automatically what they're going to see. So like for my English teachers, they were doing a unit on the book Ghost by Jason Reynolds. So we put together a dashboard that was in the color of Ghost, had the cover of the book, had a YouTube video of Jason Reynolds reading the first chapter, had links to our catalog where we had copies of the other books in the series. You can put all sorts of stuff, like you can completely customize these dashboards. So the middle school kids, they click and there's all this information for them, so the English teachers are also getting a bonus out of this, and you can set them up for any subject. I'm really looking forward to working with some of the other teachers and getting some other dashboards set up for other subjects. So there's that. There's the drag and drop interface for the kids. So if they see a book cover that looks good, they can grab it, drag it to the hold list, and I get a message saying, this kid wants this book. And then I can run over to the high school, grab it out of the collection, bring it to the kids. It's got drag and drop, make a list. So if the kids see 10 books that they want, they can only take out 3 at a time. They can drag all the others to a list and it automatically saves for them. Like it's so easy for them to use.
I'm curious, is it less expensive than Follett?
I think we're paying about, I think it's $150 more than Destiny, but for a year. But for me, totally worth it. Now, I will also say that there is a transfer fee that was not insignificant, but it's funny because I've talked to different librarians about it, and some of them are like, oh my gosh, we could never afford that. And some of them were like, oh, that's all? So like, I guess it's kind of in the eye of the beholder how much the transfer fee is, but it's cost competitive for my mind. And the setup fee is a one-time thing. So if you do your library, they just do it as one whole go. They collect all your information. They send you a packet to fill out about how do you do your stuff. And then they just import it all into your Access-It catalog.
Yeah, and that's definitely, those are important questions to ask.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say, not everybody's in the position you've been to be able to make that decision. A lot of times, those decisions are made at the district level and at the county level. And all of a sudden, I know for us, it's done at the county level. So I forget about what I do at my building. It really doesn't matter because it's being decided at a much, much higher level than it is for me. But I love hearing about this program. And it sounds like they have the students in mind. And it sounds like you can really show that collaboration that you're doing with your teachers when you create something that's customized for them.
Absolutely. One of the things that mostly sold me on this, I will not lie, is the fact that because we are a middle school that is separate from the high school, we've got our own book collection, but it's housed with the high school collection. So the high school kids can see our books. But I'm not really thrilled about the middle school kids necessarily being able to access everything the high school kids have, because there's definitely some different levels of maturity there. So I was able to take the middle school collection and set it up so that the middle school kids can see the middle school collection, but they can't see the high school. It's one of the visibility features that you can set in the catalog, whereas I can set the high school kids to see everything. So it's just a matter of setting up different categories in your catalog to say, these books belong in this category and these books belong in this category. And that's it. You can set the visibilities however you want. So that's been awesome. And if you're looking for a way to maybe sell this to the higher ups, one of the other things you can do with it is you can actually, they sell it or they mention the fact in the marketing that you can set it up to be a maintenance system for your technology too. Like if you've got Chromebooks that are getting checked out, you can set up a separate Chromebook collection and you can set it up so that the tech guys are administrators on just the technology side of it. So they won't be able to see your book collection stuff. They won't be able to see student circulation stats. They'll only be able to see the Chromebook section. So the ability to be able to really fine tune this and make it a system that's going to work for everybody, you could do it for textbooks. You could do it for whatever kind of collections of stuff that you have. You can set it up in here and set up specific people to be able to access it. Oh, speaking of access, you can actually set it up so that the teachers can check books out to the students if you want. You can set it up so that students can self-check. There's a phone app that the kids can put on their phone that they can just scan the barcode on the book and it checks it out to them. It's awesome. I just started rolling that out and the kids are loving the fact that they can pick up a book and go blip and have the book for 2 weeks. Like it's that simple. Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I'm having circulation software envy already.
It's so awesome. Yeah.
Wow. But I think that I'm so glad to hear that this worked out because so often when we take those chances on something that's new, you harbor that sort of concern that this could all fly back in the face of the person who made that decision, being you. And you want to make sure that, I mean, I think that this is one of those really big decisions that some of us get to make. And it sounds like you're really pleased with your decision. Have you felt like you've been able to get the support that you need if you have tech questions? And another question, when you are making your purchases, because I know that you've been given a lovely budget, have you been able to easily incorporate the new books into your collection using Accessit?
Absolutely. The tech support has been outstanding. They've actually got a page where you can set up help tickets, and you can actually set the priority. You can say, this is a problem that needs immediate help, or you can say, this is a problem that when you get to it, I'd like some help, or you can just say, here's a request for a feature. And I've actually put in some, and they've said, oh, that's a great idea. We're going to talk to the devs about it. So like, if there's something that it's not doing, you can ask them and they may be able to incorporate it for you. So and they've been incredibly responsive, because Accessit's main headquarters is in New Zealand. So they're 12 hours behind us. So you're getting basically around the clock support, because they've got offices in New Zealand, in England, and now they've got some in America. So wherever you happen to be in your time of day, you send in a support ticket. And I would say 9 times out of 10, I've gotten a response in the same school day and usually within a couple of hours. So yeah. It's really been great.
I'm sorry that you're not getting a commission, because it would be curious to know how many librarians after this decide, I'm just going to look into this just for giggles. I'm just going to look into this. Oh,
you absolutely should. Absolutely. I mean, it integrates with Mac and Via, so the kids can just click on the Mac and Via titles and they open in the catalog. Like, they don't even have to go someplace else and log in like they used to have to. So we had 2 separate collections, and the electronic side was never getting used because you had to go to a separate place to access it. And it wasn't even cataloged because it didn't integrate in Destiny. Now it's integrated. Yeah. Oh, even better, it's got this feature called OneSearch. You can set up your databases. To be connected to your catalog. You can set up your own search engines. Like, you can make a custom search engine in Google, and you can put that inside of your catalog, so that when the kids do a search in the catalog, it'll show them, here's what we've got in the collection itself. But if that doesn't meet your needs, over on the side, there's a little pane for OneSearch. And then you can click on the first one I've got set up is for a custom search I built for them. That's all only reliable sources. So they're not just going on Google, they're getting the stuff that I point them toward. The next one is our databases, our EBSCO databases. So they get results from EBSCO if they click on that. And it actually opens up a new window, so you can see that you're not in the catalog anymore. You're now in this other thing. But if they did a search for, cats, that's the one I always use for my example, and they click on EBSCO, it opens up an EBSCO window with the search already done for cats, and here's the results. I've got it connected to our local public library, so that if we don't have it, they can see if the public library has it, so that they can, if they've got their library card, they can put it on hold from our school to the public library and get the books and go pick them up.
So it's like a meta search.
It is.
Oh my gosh.
I've been telling the kids and the teachers, don't use Google anymore. Go into our catalog, do your search there, because you're going to find what we have on hand that you can use, and you're going to see only good search results. You're not going to see the garbage that you might get from Google. You don't have to use all the search tips. I mean, not that they shouldn't know search tips. They should, but, it's a nice, handy extra feature, Yeah,
Steve
right?
Tatro, you are, I gotta tell you, I just want to bottle that energy. I swear. You know what, friends? This is what happens when you give educators a 3-day weekend. That's all I'm going to say. Steve, thank you so much. Please let listeners know where we can follow you on social media.
Absolutely. I am still on Twitter for the now and the foreseeable future at Dr. T Loves Books, DRT Loves Books. And that's it. I mean, find me there, and I'm happy to point you to other places. Check out School Librarian Learning Network if you're looking for some free learning opportunities. And always check out Amy's podcast, because it's awesome.
Have a great day, Steve.
Thank you. You too.
Blake Hopper, welcome back to the podcast.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me back.
Friends, we are so fortunate to have Blake back to the podcast. It has been a while, almost 2 years. The last time we heard from Blake, we recorded episode 117, Teaming Up with Your Administration with Vicki Winstead. And that was in March of 2021. Blake, I am so grateful you're here to tell us about your circulation software.
Yeah, happy to be back. That was a long time ago. It's a really important topic. I really like that topic too.
Well, and I'll tell you what, friends, if you haven't listened to that episode, the two of them talking about all of the things that we can do because we have those great working relationships with our administrators. And, it really is, especially in a school setting, it doesn't matter if the teachers are bickering. It doesn't matter, if a group of teachers aren't getting along. But I'll tell you what, something that really make or breaks our program is how well we get the support of our administrators. So, and it was such an important episode to listen to. And I do consider it one of those foundational ones that if you have not worked in a school setting, or if you are brand new to being a librarian, learning just how important it is to have that working relationship with your administrators is really vital. Blake, remind us where in the world you are. Tell us about your school, the students you support. What's your day like?
I am in East Tennessee. I'm where Kentucky and Virginia meet. I can be in either state in 15 minutes. I am a K-4 school librarian, and I serve around about 550 kids given the day or what time it is. And I've been at it for about 10 years. I've been a librarian for 9. I've been in education for 10 years. So I can't believe it's already been 10 years.
Wow. So pause. You were a teacher for 1 year and then went into the library.
Yep. So it just happened. I didn't have my master's yet, but my school librarian hung on until I got a teaching job, and then she retired, and I got to move into the role.
I know that there are listeners around the world who are listening going, yep, right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And then good on you for taking that opportunity, because there are a lot of people who would say, yeah, no. Yeah. I worked this hard to get into the classroom. I'm not going to mix it up right now. Yeah. But it sounds like you made the absolute best decision of all time.
Oh, for sure. I love my job. I love going to school every day.
Oh, that's amazing. So let me ask you, what kind of schedule do you have? Because I think that is something that really helps us understand what your day looks like.
Yeah, I have a fixed flex schedule, and I feel like that's the best of both worlds. I work with my administration to work that out. So I have classes from 9:15 to 2 o'clock, and all the other times throughout the day is flex scheduling. So students can come in and out of the library and check out. Staff can come in and out. I can go help them with anything that they need. So I feel like it's the best of both worlds, because if you're on a completely flex schedule, I think it's really hard to get those teachers to come down, because they have so much to do. So I feel like this way I do get to see all the kids at least once a week. Plus, I still have that flex time to go back and forth.
Well, and friends, if you've ever had to teach littles at 8:20 in the morning, they're half asleep. Yeah. They're half asleep, and I'll be honest, nobody wants that first prep. They've already, nobody wants it. The teachers are already frustrated. Mm-hmm. And if you teach, like, God help you, the 3rd or 4th graders, at the end of the day, they're bouncing off the walls.
For sure. Yep, you're correct. Yeah. So I start about 9:15 with classes. So I feel like that they've gotten woken up a little bit.
Absolutely. Tell us about your circulation software and let us know how you feel about it.
So I feel like I use one of the top-of-the-line softwares. I don't know if everyone else agrees with that, but I use Follett from Destiny. I used to use ResourceMate, and it is just not meant for school libraries and larger library collections. So we updated to Follett Destiny, and I think it's been one of the best decisions for my district. It just has so many capabilities. It's user-friendly. You can choose your layouts for different grade levels. I think it's just an awesome decision, an awesome system.
Well, and I think, and I don't know how long you worked with the other system, but you have perspective, because you can compare a system that clearly wasn't designed with schools in mind. Right. And now you have that, like, appreciation.
Yes, for sure. And that system is not bad. Like, it could be used it's good for, like, a church library or something like that, but definitely not for a school system or a school library with, like, 10,000 items. It's just not good for that.
No, absolutely. So tell us what it is about Follett that you feel really changes the way you do your job.
I feel like the ease of using the circulation tabs to get books out to the kids. I don't feel like I have to be tied to the circulation desk. My TA can do it. I have self-checkout set up for the students. So I feel like that's one of the best features. Then you have being able to import, export your titles when you've purchased books for the MARC records. I feel like it lets you quickly get your books into the system, processed, and out to the kids, which is really what we want.
Do you feel that Follett does a good job of providing an accessible interface for your littles?
Oh, yeah, for sure. They have something called Destiny Discover, and it provides lots of covers for your kids. So, like if you have new books, there's a carousel of that. If you have your top reads, there's a carousel of that. And then it has a big object on the picture that says in or out. So it's green if it's in, it's red if it's out. So kids can recognize those things. And I've just put it on the iPads, and they can carry those iPads around searching for books or whatever they need.
So wait a minute. Go back and talk about the iPads, because I think that that's a great strategy.
So I was looking for a way to let the kids quickly search the catalog. And I know that it's not the end-all, be-all for us to teach catalog and all that, but I just do a quick couple of weeks lessons on it just so they can be familiar and be more independent. So I saved the Destiny website as an app on the home screen, and then the kids know they can click on it, and then they can go and type in their books and find out what they're looking for. And we've learned what a call number is, why we have call numbers, and they carry the iPad around looking for their books. They just know to use that call number, and they carry it around to find their book, pull it, and then give it off to another kid. They always say, I need that book app we use. They don't ever remember what it is, but they say, I need that book app. So.
But again, giving them that agency, they can move around, that mobility. They can carry it around, and it allows them to feel like shoppers. Yeah. Do your littles ever call it shopping? We're going to...
because they say, can I buy this book? No, but you can borrow it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to go shopping. Yeah. Absolutely. So tell me, what do you feel about Follett has really changed the way you build out your collection?
The simplicity of being able to go ahead and just upload your collection directly to Tidalway for that analysis. I know that that's not the ends-all be-all to know your collection, but it's a really good starting point, especially if you're new and you just want to see where you're at. I can automatically tell the age. I can tell areas that I'm weak in, I need to weed. Weeding's not always been my strong suit. I feel like I've gotten stronger in that over the years because it's just so hard to get rid of those books. But I feel like I know why we have to do it. So I feel like that it really helps you develop your collection to be what you want it to be for your kiddos.
Do you upload your MARC records?
Yep. So it automatically transfers your MARC records to Tidalway. You can go to the catalog tab, click Tidalway, click submit for analysis, and it automatically goes to that. Now, if I'm using another system like Bound to Stay Bound or J Appleseed or Capstone or something like that, I can download those MARC records from those companies and just go to the catalog tab, click import, and import them up, and they're there. And then I can just go edit the record for what I need it to be. It's just very, very simple, and it gets your books in and out to the kids in no time.
Fantastic. So, Blake, one of my biggest complaints about the Circ software that I used at one of my districts was that I couldn't easily generate reports, whether it was overdue notices or it wasn't. In my case, I needed non-circulation reports so I could do a really quick weed before we boxed up our collection for renovations. So tell me about the reports that you can get in Follett.
So I feel like that they have any report you need. I can print overdue notices to send home if we're missing books. I can print circulation stats. I can print what I've purchased that year. I can print reports for just general reports to print out a whole list of things that are missing out of the library. You can go ahead and sift through the reports and export them to Excel to be able to change up the data and information that's in there. So I feel like it's very versatile, and it even lets you build reports on what you want because they have different types of reports, library reports, circulation reports, all those things. And I'm really big on advocacy and advocating, showing numbers because admin love numbers. So there's a dashboard within Destiny that lets you know how many books you've checked out that month, how many books you have overdue. So I take that information, put it on my graphic every month, the books I've added, and it's a great advocate to let your community know what you're doing. And it's quick.
Well, it sounds like you've got a great workflow when it comes to using Follett. I imagine you would be very resistant to anybody suggesting you change to anything different.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, no, go away.
Blake Hopper, I am so grateful that you took time out of your busy evening to talk with us. I know that listeners would love to follow you. I know you and I follow each other at least on Twitter, but I know you're also on Instagram. Would you share with listeners, where can we find you on social media?
Sure. Yeah. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Traveling Librarian. And you can find me on Twitter at TravLibrarian because traveling would not fit for my handle. So it had to be different. So yeah, I love social media. I love to share things on there. So, yep.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Blake.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I always love coming on.
Carolyn Vibert, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here today.
Carolyn, I am so, excited that you can join us. Friends, the last time we talked to Carolyn, it was episode 145, Can I Just Vent? And it was a lot of fun, and I'm so glad you returned to the podcast because we had a great conversation. So, Carolyn, tell us a little bit about where you are in the country, tell us about your library, and give us set the scene for us.
I am a K-5 elementary librarian in Northern Virginia. I currently teach in a district with about 100 schools, so it's definitely on the large side. And my school has 650 students. We are Title I, and about 70% of our students are learning English or are bilingual. And I love my little library. It's my second open concept library that's been walled in. So it's one of those hexagon, octagon shapes. And we're open all day long with open access. And I have some classes scheduled as well. So we're always hopping.
That's wonderful. Now, just for clarification, because you said open concept, I know that there was a time when the idea was to put the library sort of in the center of everything and have no walls. Am I correct in that?
And that's how it used to be.
And I did get to go visit a school like that, and it blew my mind. But boy, you were in the center of everything. So they've now glassed you in? Is that what happened?
Yes. The library has bookshelves all along the eight walls, or most of the 8 walls. And we're kind of in the middle of a circular pod with classrooms now around the outside edge.
Well, and I think what's wonderful about that is the accessibility, because as somebody who taught on the 3rd floor, I was kind of an afterthought. People are like, oh, I don't want to have to go all the way up those 45 stairs to get to you.
That's a lot of stairs. No, people walk through all day long.
As it should be, right? So I have a question. Let's learn about what circulation software are you using, and what about it do you want to share with listeners today?
I use Follett Destiny, which is not unusual, as I think many of us are Follett Destiny users. But when I started as a librarian, I have been around just long enough to have used Follett's Circulation Plus. And when I used Circ Plus, it was workstation based. We did not have the connectivity to do interlibrary loan. There was no need for 15-digit barcodes. Our barcodes were 4 or 5 digits. And I had this really fat manual that I had filled with Post-it notes of all the pages of information I needed to know on a day-to-day basis. And so when we switched to Follett Destiny, a lot of those pieces were exactly the same. They were just transferred over into this new cloud-based platform. The barcodes had to change so that you could connect to your entire district's catalog, but a lot of the functionality remained the same.
Well, and it sounds like you don't have a problem with its, user interface. It's been rather intuitive. At least that's been my experience.
Absolutely. And it helps to have been there from the beginning. I think one of the frustrations we often feel with our software is anytime a district purchases any new software, it usually comes with X amount of hours of training. But then after that point, the software is no longer new, but the staff are. And so every year, new librarians come into our districts and start library jobs, and they don't have the same training that those who were there when the software was initiated have.
Well, and the idea is that, unfortunately, the company's more than happy to charge you for the training that they're going to offer. What solution have you come up with to work around that? Because it sounds like, as somebody who's been around to appreciate all the innovations that Follett has had, what's your workaround?
My workaround is me. I guess I've always had this knack for writing directions. Even when I was a classroom teacher working through the gradebook, I wrote our own directions for our gradebook. So when I came to a new district, and that district was just starting to use Follett Destiny, whereas I had already been using it for a couple of years, I started to offer workshops and trainings. So I presented at our state conference about how to take a little homepage in Destiny and do the HTML code to integrate widgets and pictures. And then ever since then, I've just been offering little workshops here and there. We're a big enough district with enough librarians that we have a local library association, the Prince William School Librarians Association. And so every year we do a back to school meeting, and I usually offer my back to school 10 tips or 10 nitty gritty tasks that you need to do in Destiny to start the year. And then this year, knowing that there's so many new librarians who have come into our county, we started to offer. At the beginning of the year, we were doing bi-monthly Zoom meetings. So every 2 weeks, we offered a Zoom Destiny training, and now we're doing it once a month. Now that we've gotten through the basic tasks, we're moving on to some of the more niche topics. So next week, I'm leading a workshop about sublocations and copy categories.
Wow. I got to tell you, as somebody who was new to the district, I was always embarrassed to ask questions because I felt like this was information I was already supposed to have, and to ask somebody as generous as yourself, it was frustrating for me because I was just embarrassed that this was things I had to ask help for. And it sounds like you've realized, by putting the information out there, by making this accessible, you're removing that burden or that barrier to finding out. I struggled because I was trying to figure out everything on my own, and I shouldn't have had to do that. So I'm curious, would you ever consider letting somebody like myself join one of your trainings?
Absolutely. We have thought about opening it up a little bit. So I will get the rest of the spring schedule to you to put in the show notes. And as I always say at the beginning of every training, if you need a Destiny BFF, then I am your Destiny BFF. There is no question too small or too picky or too, I should know this. I shouldn't have to ask. No question too silly to ask. So I'm always happy to be there for anyone.
Well, friends, definitely make sure to check out the show notes because, anytime somebody says, hey, listen, I'm offering some training and you all are welcome, that's a rare invitation. And so I'm very grateful. I do know that, there is a group on Facebook that tries to troubleshoot some of these questions. But, being that you've established this expertise, it's a shame Follett doesn't somehow compensate you for all of your time and energy because you've truly done some of the work that in many cases we would be calling our customer support service for. Can I ask you, what are some other things that you have found really helpful in teaching others when it comes to Follett?
I think one thing to know about Follett is that just like I had the really fat manual for Circulation Plus, that manual essentially does still exist in the help menu of Follett. They do have, it's sometimes tricky to search, but they do have really good directions for how to use the software. And they also have an online Follett community where you can just ask questions and librarians will answer your questions. And sometimes the Follett staff will monitor that and step in as well. And they do accept feature requests also. If there's ever a feature that you wish it had and can't figure out, then they do keep that list for making the software better.
No, I think that's great because I as somebody who has recently come back to Follett after something of a 7-year hiatus, there's so much that I'm just trying to reconfigure and reorient when I do my job.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess the next question is, have you ever spoken to Follett about things that could be remedied or made more intuitive?
I haven't really talked to them. I have submitted some feature requests. So my number one pet peeve with Destiny is that you have to sometimes do really repetitive tasks when I just wish there was a select all button to choose the records I want to modify, and then an apply all and apply the same setting to each of those records. So for example, one of the features I love is in each patron's profile, there are user-defined fields. And the district can choose what goes in those fields, such as a student's nickname or their homeroom teacher. But I also have the ability to edit some of those fields. So one year, our school decided that they wanted to track data by subgroup. We had a particular subgroup on our standardized tests that we needed to accelerate their learning. And so everybody was required to write a goal for this subgroup. Well, I went into the user-defined field, I typed in a little code, and I was able to generate data reports to show that subgroup of students' circulation habits compared to their cohort of peers in 2nd grade and 5th grade. But I had to edit each patron's account individually, rather than being able to select the 10 students I was tracking and edit the one field and click apply to all. I recently made a mistake and uploaded MARC records from a public library resource of a video collection. And I have done this before. I've made the same mistake before, and I did not learn from my mistake. So maybe the next time I'll learn. I thought I was going to upload like one MARC record for the service, but it uploaded 1,500 MARC records, one for each individual video. Well, to delete them, because they're not actually copies. There's no copies. It's just the record. It's a little bit like an ebook. Anyway, to delete them, I have to go through about a 5-click process. And so I call these tasks Netflix and couch tasks, when you just need to sit on your couch with Netflix at night and just do these repetitive tasks of editing each individual record.
That for me, that's the when I used to make flashcards for my littles that were laminated. That was also a sit in front of the TV, find a good movie, and and the scissors that work really well, and you're going to be cutting out flashcards and watching a movie. Carolyn Vibert, I am so grateful for the opportunity to perhaps cross paths again and maybe attend one of your trainings, because as somebody who's new to Follett again, I really could use some reminders. Would you let us know where we can find you on social media?
Absolutely. I am definitely a Twitter girl. So I am at Carolyn Vibert on Twitter. I am working my way through Instagram, same handle. I am not a Facebook user, not into TikTok yet, but someday maybe I'll get there.
All right. Listen, Carolyn, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.
You're welcome. Thank you.
A very big thank you to all our guests for making today's episode possible. Be sure to add them to your virtual PLN, and if this is the first time you are listening to today's guests, do take a look at our show notes for links to the previous episodes, which feature our talented lineup. If you found this episode helpful, please share it out with your team, your PLN, and on social media. Be sure to follow on your favorite podcatcher so you'll never miss an episode. And if you really like listening today, consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews help others find us. One last friendly reminder, friends, I encourage you to take advantage of Capstone's generous $20 discount off an order of $100 or more using the code UNITED. The topic of our next episode will be Retired Librarians Rock, and my conversation with Terry Belcher. I hope you will tune in.